Hi, my name's Victoria, and on the morning of May 24, 2025, my own sister smiled, said we should reconnect, then drove me to a waterfall and pushed me in. She thought I couldn't swim. She thought I'd disappear. Her cold calculation burned in my mind, a betrayal sharper than the rocks below. But the next day, while she stood on stage claiming she built it, she found a black box on her desk. Her face paled as she saw my initials carved into the lid, a silent accusation she couldn't ignore. No note, no warning, just the truth. Before we dive in, tell me, what time are you listening to this and where from? Because by the end, you might be asking yourself, what would I have left in that box? I got to the office early that morning. The street lamps were still on when I pulled into the lot, and my latte hadn't even cooled yet. I remember thinking, today's the day they'll finally say it out loud. The anniversary banner was already draped across the lobby. 15 years of bold vision. My heels echoed through the hall as I passed the framed photos. The founding moments. They used to show the two of us side by side. One with Isabella holding the mock-up label, one with me next to a shipment tracker, hands full of bubble wrap, and a grin on my face. Now, my frame was missing. Literally. There was a blank square of paint where it used to hang. I froze, my heart sinking, as I realized she'd erased me from our shared history. At first, I thought maybe they were updating it. That quiet, familiar squeeze that happens when you realize something's wrong. But it's already too late to stop it. I headed to the boardroom. That's where the morning prep meeting at 8 o'clock IA was supposed to be. Final want-through for the anniversary gala. I wasn't on the invite, but I'd been in every one of these since we started in my apartment. No one needed to invite me back then. A printed seating chart was taped to the whiteboard. Executive presentation order. There were 6 names. Mine wasn't one of them. I stood there reading it again just to be sure. Isabella, co-founder and CEO. Matteo, head of marketing. Fiona, head of product. Even Ethan, the junior legal guy who joined 2 years ago, was slotted for a 5-minute growth culture talk. But not me. The assistant, a girl named Hannah I'd hired myself, walked past me without saying hello. Just a glance, brief and professional, like I was a guest. Trying to ignore the sting, I pulled out my phone and checked the latest internal HR memo, the kind they post in the shared drive but never send directly. There it was. Victoria Carson, updated title, operations consultant, non-executive, honorary. My breath caught, her betrayal now official, stripping me of my role without a word. My fingers went cold. No notice, no meeting, no conversation. I walked toward my office. The hallway felt longer than usual. My chest was doing that thing where it feels like you're walking underwater, every step. When I opened the door, I just stood there. It was empty. No monitor, no framed launch sketches, not even my chair. Instead, a sticky note was taped to the desk. Temporary desk reassignment. Room 3. That's all it said. No name, no signature, no explanation. I looked around. The walls were bare, the desk drawers hung open, empty. Even the ceramic paperweight my niece gave me was gone. I didn't scream, didn't storm into HR. That's not who I am. I picked up my bag, walked slowly down the hall, and took the stairs quietly, because part of me didn't want to be seen, like being invisible was safer than being pitied. Room B3 was downstairs, past the IT closet next to the storage hallway. It used to be where we kept expired snacks and spare light bulbs. Now, someone had thrown in a metal desk and a wobbling office chair. No window, no plaque, just one empty drawer and a dead power strip. I sat down. The chair creaked like it knew I didn't belong there. I unclipped the silver pin from my coat lapel, the one shaped like a teardrop. Mom gave it to me on our launch day back when she still answered my calls. I held it in my palm and stared at it like it had something to say. I whispered to it. She took everything, my voice trembling with the weight of her deceit. Maybe it was just a clerical error, a mix-up. Maybe someone forgot to update the doc. Maybe I was overthinking it. But deep down, I knew. I pulled out my laptop and started typing an email to HR. Hi, Janice. I noticed some changes to my title and office space. Just wanted to, then I stopped. My finger hovered over the keys. I highlighted the sentence, then hit backspace. If I sent that message, I'd be the difficult one, the overly sensitive sister, the one who always made things awkward. No one had to yell. No one needed to fire me. They just quietly rewrote the story and left me out of the new version. They didn't just forget me. They're unwriting me. That realization hit like a punch, her deliberate plan to erase my existence now clear. That line kept echoing in my head long after I left the supply closet. I replayed it as I made myself a late dinner, as I ran the dishwasher, even while brushing my teeth. It had sunk so deep that when I tapped my phone the next morning, I almost didn't register the banner notification glowing on the screen. Reminder, company gala, dress code formal, founders expected on stage at 7:30 p.m. I stared at it, thumb hovering, so they still had me in the mailing list. That or someone forgot to remove me from this too. For a moment I considered deleting it, but instead I tapped Mark Unread and let it sit there like a dare. Later that night I stood in my kitchen. The lights dimmed, my heels echoing softly against the tile as I practiced my speech to no one. I'd written and rewritten it a dozen times. It wasn't long, just enough to thank the team, the early investors, and Isabella. Yes, even her. I wasn't looking for applause. I just didn't want to disappear without saying something real. The teardrop pin lay beside my phone on the counter. The silver dulled from years of wear. I picked it up, turned it over in my palm. It used to shine brighter. So did I. That afternoon, I ironed my navy blue dress, the one with sleeves that always made me feel steady, not flashy but solid, reliable. By 6:30, I was pulling into the underground garage of the downtown Seattle venue. A valet opened the door and gave me a quick smile, but no recognition. The event hall was already buzzing when I stepped in. Glass chandeliers lit up every corner, casting golden halos over tables covered in champagne flutes. Strings of soft jazz floated through the air. The air was thick with perfume, ambition, and something sharper. Curated history. A staff member at the front greeted me with a smile, holding out a folded program. Founders Edition, it said in embossed print. I opened it. 6 names: Isabella, Matteo, Fiona, Ethan, board advisor, and one of our early seed partners. I flipped to the back. There was a section titled, Our Journey. My name didn't appear once. My heart pounded, her erasure now public, a deliberate cut to my legacy. I closed it slowly. From somewhere behind me, a voice, barely more than a whisper. Wait, isn't that her? I thought she was like logistics or something, not a founder. I turned my head. 2 junior staffers, probably in their mid-20s, giggling behind their glasses of rosé. When they noticed I'd heard, they froze. One muttered, "Sorry," and looked away. I smiled, not out of kindness, just habit. I walked through the room quietly, weaving between clusters of people who didn't look up. My heels made no sound on the carpet, like even my footsteps had been muted. At exactly 7:30, the lights dimmed. A spotlight snapped onto the stage, and then I saw her. Isabella, my sister. Her champagne-colored gown shimmered under the stage lights. She held the mic with both hands like it belonged to her. She didn't glance into the crowd, didn't search for me. 1 year ago, she began. I stood on this very stage, unsure of everything except one thing, that I had to make something out of nothing. The crowd broke into applause. She smiled. I built this with grit, vision, and the belief that anything, absolutely anything, is possible when you fight for it. There was no mention of our late nights in my apartment, no nod to the sketches on my fridge, no recognition of the 5 years I spent hauling product, negotiating with manufacturers, or answering customer support emails at 2 in the morning. She stood there, glimmering with borrowed light, and rewrote the story as if I had never existed. Her lies echoed in my ears, each word a fresh wound to my pride. When the room stood up in ovation, I didn't move. I just stared at her. How easily she lied, how confidently. Afterward, as the room swelled with laughter and clinking glasses, I made my way toward the back exit. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to smile. I just wanted air. And that's when I heard her voice behind me. "There you are." I turned. Isabella stood alone, wine glass in hand, lips painted just right, not a hair out of place. "I was wondering if you'd come," she said, tilting her head. "You look nice." I kept my voice even. "Why didn't you mention me?" She blinked. "Excuse me. On stage, you erased everything we did together. Why?" There was a pause, just a beat, and then she smiled softly. "We needed you when we were desperate. Now we're not." Her words sliced deeper than any knife, confirming she'd always planned to discard me. She said it like she was explaining a weather report. Calm, certain. The words didn't hit like a slap. They landed like something heavier, something that had been building for years, waiting for this moment to fall. I didn't say anything else. What was the point? Instead, I nodded, walked past her. I stepped outside into the evening air. The city was lit up, cars rolling through intersections, neon signs flickering against old brick buildings. I caught my reflection in the glass door, faint, distorted like I'd already started fading. I reached up to unfasten the teardrop pin from my dress. My fingers hesitated. Then I left it there. Not yet. I wasn't ready to let go. Turns out silence has a breaking point too. 2 days later, Isabella texted me. "Let's take a breather. Just us. No team, no mess, Sister's Day." She added a heart emoji at the end. I stared at the message longer than I needed to. Part of me knew better, but another part, one that still remembered the late nights, the shared ramen bowls, the time we signed our first order contract barefoot in my apartment, wanted to believe she was reaching out, not to rewrite, but to reconnect. So I said yes. She picked me up the next morning just after 10:00 clock. The air was misty, like it hadn't decided if it wanted to be fog or rain. She rolled down the passenger window before I even shut the door and chirped, "Thought we'd visit where it all began?" "Snoqualmie Falls," I said softly. She nodded, pushing her sunglasses up like a movie star. Her fake warmth masked the venom I now suspected. "Figured we could do a little full circle moment. New chapters, right?" The drive was quiet at first. Trees blurred past us, still holding on to the last of their autumn rust. She played soft folk music on the radio, something nostalgic, like she was curating the moment on purpose. "I know things have been tense," she said finally, halfway up the winding road. "That this year's been hard on both of us. Growth does that. I want to make peace with the past." Her voice was too smooth, a rehearsed act hiding her true intentions. I didn't respond right away. I just watched her hands on the wheel. Her nails were freshly painted. No nervous tapping, no hesitation in her voice, but everything still felt off. When we arrived, the trail was nearly empty, only a few tourists scattered near the base, holding up phones, taking pictures through the fog. The stone path curved up toward the lookout point. Isabella walked ahead, her boots too clean for the muddy trail. I followed slowly, carefully. She talked the whole time about the acquisition announcement coming up, the firm's interest in young visionary-led brands, how the press loved the image of a lone founder. And hey, she added, throwing a glance over her shoulder, "Maybe this opens a door for you, too. You've always wanted to consult, right?" I didn't answer. My breath was starting to come shorter with the climb. We reached the edge just as the wind picked up, pushing fog into our faces. The falls roared below, cascading down the cliff like liquid thunder. I wrapped my coat tighter. Isabella stood near the railing, arms crossed, hair whipping around her face. "It's funny," she said, not looking at me. 1 year since we launched, and I still feel trapped." I stepped beside her. Trapped? How? She turned, her eyes met mine, calm, almost tender. I saw a flicker of malice, a glimpse of the sister who'd planned my end. Finally, she whispered, "I'm free," and she shoved. The railing was too low, the rocks too slick. I slipped before I could even cry out. There was no scream, just air, and then water. Everything disappeared in white sound. Cold swallowed me whole. I hit something hard, Stone, maybe, and then again. My body twisted underwater, limbs flailing for purchase. My coat dragged me down. My head cracked against something. For a moment, I didn't know which way was up. Then instinct kicked in. I kicked. I clawed. My lungs burned. My ears rang. When I finally surfaced, I gasped so violently I choked. The current tried to pull me, but I managed to drift toward the edge, half swimming, half sinking, until I reached a patch of moss and roots. I dug my fingers into the mud, pulling myself up inch by inch, my nails snapping, my knees scraping against stone. The pain didn't register yet, only the cold. I collapsed beneath a low overhang, half cave, half crevice, shivering so hard my jaw ached. I turned over on my side and vomited up half the river. Then I lay there, staring at nothing. My voice was barely a sound. She actually left me. I reached for my phone, still strapped inside my waterproof pouch, waterlogged, no bars. The screen flickered once and died. I waited under that overhang until the sun began to move again. Then I stood, barely, and started walking. The trail wasn't marked from that side. I followed a logging road, half hobbling, half stumbling. I passed no cars, no hikers, no one. When I finally reached the ranger station nearly 5 miles later, I lied. I slipped. Just a dumb accident, I told the man at the desk. He wanted to call an ambulance. I declined. Just need to get home, I said. And I did. I took the regional bus back to Seattle in soaking clothes. The other passengers avoided eye contact. At home, I sat on the floor of my shower for over an hour. Hot water didn't feel hot. My knees were bruised, my back was scraped raw, but none of that hurt as much as what I now knew. She hadn't pushed me because of business. She pushed me because I was still there, still breathing, still in the frame, still a threat to her version of the story. I clenched my fists, vowing she'd face the truth she tried to drown. And the worst part, she was counting on my silence. But I didn't drown. I came to on someone's porch, lying on a sun-warmed blanket that smelled faintly of cedar and detergent. A woman with kind eyes and graying curls offered me a chipped mug of tea. Her husband hovered nearby, holding a bag of dry clothes. "We found you curled up near the service road," the woman said gently. "You looked like you'd seen a ghost." I managed to nod. My voice hadn't come back yet, but my mind was already spinning. She left me to die, and then went on with the party. I sat quietly for another half hour, sipping just enough tea to soothe the ache in my throat. Then I stood, thanked them, and asked if I could borrow a hoodie, maybe sunglasses too. They didn't press. The man handed over a thick zip-up that smelled faintly of tobacco. I slipped it on, pulled the hood low, and stepped out into the daylight. It was nearly noon when I called a rideshare from the edge of the highway, using the woman's old phone. I didn't give my name. I gave them the corner near the service entrance of the company building, not because I was hiding, because I wanted to see what they did when they thought I was gone. The building was alive with chatter. Inside the back stairwell, I could hear someone giving instructions. Quick, clipped, excited. I crept up 3 floors and paused beside a door that led into one of the smaller meeting rooms. It was cracked open. So, with Victoria's role now considered closed, we're moving forward with the full rebrand, a voice said. I recognized it. Isabella's new marketing head, the one who joined 6 months ago, never once speaking directly to me. Another voice chimed in. Isabella is prepping the Forbes interview now. They want a solo profile. My blood boiled. Her plan to erase me now in full motion, a calculated theft of my life's work. The sole visionary who reinvented female leadership. Laughter. She always had that vibe. Someone said, like magnetic, not like the other one. What was her name again? My throat tightened. I slipped away before I heard the rest. My legs moved on their own down the hall toward the main lobby. And there it was. A new plaque mounted beside the front doors. Founded by Isabella Carson, a story of fearless reinvention. Underneath it, etched into glass, was a stylized timeline. Launch date, seed funding, press coverage, milestones, all anchored by Isabella's photo. I watched as a junior tech guy climbed a stepladder and removed one of the final remaining pieces of the old display. A photo of our original warehouse ribbon cutting, my face front and center, hand on the scissors, Isabella beside me. He replaced it with a stock photo of a handshake between two faceless suits. The receptionist glanced at me, then back to her screen. No flicker of recognition. I might as well have been delivering food. I turned slowly, the building blurring at the edges. Part of me wanted to walk away right then. Just vanish. What's the point of fighting for something no one wants to remember you for? I made it to the glass vestibule before I froze. Inside one of the conference rooms, through the tinted panel, I saw Camilla, the newest hire in HR, maybe 24, still learning names. She was raising her hand to speak. No one looked at her. When she finally spoke anyway, someone cut her off mid-sentence. Then they moved on as if she hadn't said anything at all. I recognized the expression on her face. I'd worn it for years. I stopped moving. Later that night, back at my apartment, I dug through my storage closet and pulled out the old company laptop. It was dusty, slower than I remembered, but it still powered on and, more importantly, still connected to the server. I sat cross-legged on my couch, hair still damp from another long shower, and began the quiet work of gathering everything. Calendar invites, contract drafts, strategy decks, Slack messages, investor correspondence, receipts from my own checking account covering company bills when we couldn't make payroll the first quarter. I whispered to myself, "She'll pay for this," my resolve hardening with each file I saved. My hand trembled once, just once. I stopped and stared at the screen. If I stay silent, I become the ghost they want me to be, and I've never been good at being invisible. So I started downloading everything they thought I forgot. My apartment was dark, except for the blue light bleeding from my screen. I sat curled up on the couch, wearing the same hoodie the old couple had lent me. It still smelled like someone else's home. My fingers clicked across the trackpad, pulling open one PDF after another. Drafts of contracts, emails, old onboarding guides I remembered writing. Every document felt like a time capsule. Every sentence had my fingerprints on it. I remembered the late nights, the takeout boxes, the debates with Isabella over how to phrase our brand promise. And yet, in the most recent versions, my name wasn't there. It wasn't just missing, it had been erased. The signatures were new, the language colder, clinical. I wasn't listed as a co-founder. I wasn't even listed at all. I opened the latest version of our operating agreement, the one that outlined equity. Originally, I had 49%. I'd let her take 51 because she said it mattered more for the press to see one woman in charge. That was before I realized she'd make it look like I'd never existed. This new version, time-stamped just 8 weeks ago, listed Isabella Carson as sole executive founder. No cosign, just a single name, bold and centered. At the bottom, there it was, a forged e-signature slanted like mine, but not mine. They didn't even try that hard. I stared at it for a long time, then quietly saved the document in 3 places, my external drive, a cloud folder, and an encrypted backup. I named the folder For When They Lie. The clock glowed 3:27, and my mind wouldn't stop pacing. I pulled up a chat window and typed a name I hadn't said aloud in months. Owain had been my assistant for 3 years. She never talked much, never played the office games, but she listened. She saw more than she let on. I sent her a short message. "Are you still in Seattle?" A blinking ellipsis. "I have something you need to see." We met at a quiet coffee shop in the Northwest District, tucked behind a bike shop. The sun was just coming up, casting pale yellow across the brick sidewalk. Ion slid into the booth, hoodie up, no makeup, but eyes sharp as ever. She didn't hug me. Instead, she slid a thumb drive across the table and said, "I copied everything before they revoked my access." I held it gently, like it might shatter if I squeezed too hard. "They're prepping for acquisition, Victoria," she said, voice low. "The media kits are already drafted. There's no mention of you anywhere. They want it clean, no loose ends." I nodded once. "And they think I'm the mess." She didn't correct me. Back at home, I plugged the drive into my old laptop. It buzzed louder now, like it hated being woken up from sleep. Inside the drive, presentations, internal memos, a few red-line documents with my initials in the margins. But there was one video file, just one. I clicked play. It was a recording of a conference call. Isabella sat center screen, arms crossed, speaking to someone just off camera. Her voice was clear, deliberate. Victoria was never supposed to stay long-term. We gave her something to do so she'd feel useful. You know, keep her from unraveling. Her words pierced my heart, exposing the depth of her betrayal. Something inside me cracked. I didn't feel it happen. I just realized afterward that I was crying. It wasn't rage. Not yet. It was something smaller and meaner. Grief. Grief for the version of me that had believed it all meant something. That being in the background wasn't the same as being disposable. Maybe I was never supposed to be the one out front. Maybe I was always just the girl in the back room, fixing the mess, covering the gaps, staying quiet. Maybe I was always just convenient. For a while, I sat still, the kind of still where even breathing felt like an interruption. Then, almost without thinking, I moved the folder, everything I'd collected, toward the trash icon. I hovered. It would be so easy to just delete it all. To let her have the story, let her win. Let my phone buzzed. It was Camila. Just one line. Isabella fired me today. Said I reminded her of you. I stared at it. Something settled in my chest. Not anger exactly, something deeper. Resolve. I pulled the laptop closer, reopened the folder, rested my finger on the keyboard. She shouldn't have said that. She really shouldn't have said that. I vowed to expose her lies, knowing her empire would crumble under the weight of my truth. That morning, I sat at my small kitchen table, wrapped in an old sweater that still carried the scent of burnt coffee and lavender detergent. The apartment was quiet, except for the soft hum of my laptop and the occasional ping of emails rolling in. I opened my inbox. Still nothing. No invite, no legacy dinner pass, not even a generic, "we're thinking of you." Just silent. And then I saw it. The company's Instagram post was already trending, a full spread from the event hall downtown Seattle. Spotlights, velvet chairs, branded backdrops. In the center stood Isabella, arms crossed, smiling like she built Rome with her bare hands. The caption read, "Celebrating our founding visionary Isabella Carson, from one woman's dream to global success. No tag, no trace of me." I didn't even feel the stab this time. It was more like a shrug from the universe. At least now they'd stopped pretending. A few minutes later, Camilla messaged me. No greeting, just a screenshot of the event's printed program, hastily snapped under bad lighting. I zoomed in. There it was, under the Origins section. After walking away from a failed collaboration, Isabella Carson found the courage to build alone, channeling her resilience into a company that now serves millions. Failed collaborathi. They turned me into a footnote, a stepping stone. I clenched my fists. Her lies now a public spectacle I'd never forgive. They've rebranded my contribution as her comeback story, I muttered, shutting my laptop before I threw it. I didn't attend the dinner. I didn't need to. The entire thing was live-streamed. My phone buzzed every few minutes with someone posting from the event. People I'd mentored, trained, or helped hire. People who smiled as if I'd never existed, somewhere between a glass of water and pacing the hallway. My phone rang again. Mom. I stared at the screen, debating, then answered. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Victoria, I just wanted to say you really should have been there tonight. It was beautiful. Your sister did such a good job carrying it all. Carrying it all, while I've been what, Mom? Floating? I asked, barely keeping my voice even. It sighed, like I was being dramatic again. Always been a fighter. Always has been. You've always been the gentle one. That's not a bad thing. I swallowed the weight in my throat. And what did being gentle get me? There was a pause. Then the line went dead. No goodbye, just a click. I stood in the hallway for a long time, my phone still pressed to my ear, like maybe her voice would come back and say something different. It didn't. Her silence stung, a final confirmation she'd chosen Isabella's lies over my truth. Later that night, I walked to my closet and pulled down a slim file folder buried behind an old winter coat. Cease Originals scribbled in Sharpie across the top. Inside were the drafts, videos, memos, the raw bones of the company from the days before we had investors or logos or anyone but each other. I hadn't looked at them in years. I also found my old navy blazer, the one I wore on our launch day. The silver teardrop pin was still fastened to the collar. I pressed my fingers around it, feeling the metal warm under my skin. "They think I'm still the girl who won't raise her voice," I whispered. Let them think that a little longer. I took Ayan's Yesti drive from the drawer and plugged it into my laptop. Not just to browse this time, but to sort, name, and prepare. I created folders, founding documents, audio proof, contract amendments, witness statements, timeline of erasure. As I typed, my heart didn't race like before. I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I felt level, like someone who had nothing left to prove but everything to reclaim. She wanted legacy. I'll show her what legacy really means. I waited in the shadow of a neighboring building across the street from the office tower we built together. Well, supposedly, together. The morning air was crisp, unusually quiet for downtown Seattle. My breath fogged the inside of my mask, but I didn't take it off. Better not to be recognized. My phone buzzed. "She's out for 2 hours. I've left the drawer unlocked." That was all I needed. I slipped into the building through the parking level entrance, still had the old code memorized, and took the service elevator to the executive floor. The hallway was still polished, still too bright, but something had changed. Not in the lighting, in me. I didn't feel like a guest in my own company anymore. I felt like a collector. I didn't come to make a scene, I came to collect what was mine. Isabella's office smelled like the essential oil blend she'd bragged about to every intern who passed through. Peppermint, bergamot, and white fur, overbearing, much like her. I ignored it and went straight to the file cabinet behind her standing desk. The bottom drawer slid open smoothly. Inside were neatly arranged folders, all labeled in her calligraphic hand. I found the one I needed within seconds. ACQC Nemo Z, the version sent to investors. I opened it, flipping past the summary until page 3. There it was. My name, Victoria Carson, barely visible under a digital overlay. If you squinted, you could still see the stroke of the original text before someone digitally altered it to say, Founder and CEO, Isabella Carson. Then I turned the page. Taped to the back was something that made my hands go cold and hot at once. An earlier version, handwritten, annotated in my pen. Co-founder 51%, Isabella 49%. Victoria, my handwriting, my notes, my corrections. And below it, my original signature. She had never shredded it. She hadn't even moved it. She thought I wouldn't come looking. I gripped the paper, her arrogance now a weapon I'd turn against her. I stacked photo after photo, careful to get the timestamp on the printed footer. Then I placed everything back exactly as I'd found it. "She thought she deleted me," I whispered. "But she never checked the paper trail." That night, after dinner at home, a reheated bowl of vegetable soup I barely tasted, I powered on the old laptop again. I opened the audio folder on ANF's drive. One labeled Board March Tooth C stood out. I hit play. The voices came in clear. It was a closed-door strategy session. I recognized 3 of them, the third one cut deepest. Isabella Victoria. She was a stopgap, reliable, yes, but forgettable. She helped build the bones, but I'm the face. That's what they'll remember. I clenched my jaw, her cruelty now undeniable, fueling my determination. A laugh, another voice. Male. "Is she still on payroll?" Isabella again. "Not for long." I didn't flinch. Not this time. I just listened, still and steady. That was the moment something clicked in me. The part of me that still craved explanation, apology, anything that might have resembled guilt. It dissolved. I didn't want regret from her. I wanted clarity. And now I had it. The next morning, I woke early, brewed strong coffee, and opened a blank folder on my desktop. I named it Legacy Truth. Into it, I dropped the images from Isabella's office, the audio file, screenshots of original contracts, drafts with our joint signatures, old emails referencing both our roles. Then I opened a cloud drive, created a new folder tree, founding documents, audio proof, contract amendments, witness statements, timeline of erasure. I uploaded the files, secured the link, copied it 3 times. One for Aine, one for Camilla, one for my lawyer, and then I scheduled it. Monday, 9 o'clock. He'd be standing at the podium when the first download alerts hit inboxes. After sending the emails, I moved on to the last part. I opened a dusty storage bin near my desk and pulled out a black velvet box. Inside was the photo from day 1. Our first product sketch, Sharpie marker, our initials in the corner, her circles, my arrows. I placed the photo beside a printed copy of the co-founder contract, then the USB, then finally the teardrop pin from my old blazer. I closed the box gently, not as revenge, as record-keeping. Some stories deserve to be archived. Truthfully, I left the box on my kitchen counter. In the morning, it would go to my attorney's office by courier, or her enjoy her last speech without interruption. I stirred the coffee in my cup, not because I needed to, but because my hands needed something to do. Across the street, the front entrance of Carson & Co. gleamed beneath the Seattle morning light. Limousines lined the curb, spilling out black-suited investors and camera-ready PR faces. Legacy Day. I watched from the window of the cafe, barely sipping. My seat by the glass gave me the perfect view without the need to be seen. She thought today was hers. It still was, just not the way she imagined. Inside the boardroom, oak-naddled, cool, and thick with moneyed tension, Isabella made her entrance like a pageant queen on cue. The lights adjusted. The sound system clicked on. Everything was ready except the black box sitting at the center of the boardroom table. No name, no ribbon, just a single post-it pressed to the top flap for you. Isabella paused, her perfectly manicured fingers brushing the edge of the lid. She hesitated just a beat too long. Someone cleared their throat. She smiled, performed, opened it, and the performance stopped. Inside the box, a copy of the co-founder agreement with my signature, a printed thread of internal emails showing her edits, removing my credit, a USB-marked Legacy Truth, the photo of our first product sketch, signed by both of us, the silver teardrop pin from my original blazer, and on the back of the photo, a sentence in my handwriting. You didn't build this alone, but you will face the truth alone. At first, no one said anything. Then a shuffle of papers, a whisper, a glance from one board member to another. A senior investor leaned forward. Was this disclosed during acquisition prep? Isabella's lips parted, but no sound came. A PR rep rushed to her side and leaned in. Their murmured exchange was short. Her eyes darted, her facade cracking under the weight of my evidence. Whatever she heard made her freeze. Her assistant walked in, pale, flustered, and handed her a phone. Then came the buzzes. Around the table, notifications pinged, laptops refreshed. The Dropbox link had gone live. Every screen in that room, every phone, tablet, and investor laptop lit up with the same file tree. Founding documents, audio proof, contract amendments, witness statements, timeline of erasure. And there, front center, a recording. Victoria. She was a stopgap. Reliable, yes, but forgettable. She helped build the bones, but I'm the face. Not for long. No one screamed. No one argued. They just watched her, her voice, her words, the version of herself she thought no one else would hear. I didn't post it to embarrass her. This wasn't revenge porn. This wasn't viral scandal bait. This was just the truth. And the truth didn't blink under LED lights. Her presentation, the one she had rehearsed for months, sat unopened on her tablet. Her stylus was still clutched in her right hand. But there were no slides, no words, just a slow turn of her shoulders, the box pressed to her chest like an anchor. Isabella walked out of that boardroom alone. The headlines came within an hour. Co-finder erased. Evidence suggests otherwise, Legacy questioned. Mrs. Records disrupts Carson & Co.'s narrative. Silent partner speaks and backs it up. Her scheduled lunch with investors canceled. The PR statement under legal review. The company's stock flatlined for the afternoon. I didn't gloat. I didn't post screenshots or circle phrases in red like some online detective. I just walked home. Camila texted, "They're spinning. You broke their script." And sent a single emoji, the teardrop. Instead, I stepped into my living room, slipped off my shoes, and opened the window wide. The late morning breeze carried in a mix of urban noise and blooming dogwood. I stood there for a long moment, hands on the sill. No applause, no trophy, just space to breathe. I didn't need an apology. I just needed to be unerased. I walked back to my desk slowly and sat in front of my computer. The Legacy Truth folder was still open, but I didn't touch it. I didn't need to anymore, because everything I needed to say had already been said. And the funny thing about Legacy is that people remembers what people try to forget. I passed by the company building that morning without slowing my pace. Just a glance at the glass exterior was enough. My name, now spoken freely in press conferences and news panels, was etched into conversations like it had always been there. But I remembered, it hadn't always been there. It had been removed. First quietly, then publicly, and now, just as quietly, it had returned. The news cycle was still humming. Footage from the Legacy dinner had gone viral. Clips from the Dropbox audio spliced into trending TikToks and investor YouTube breakdowns. Headlines blurred together. The sister who built it all but said nothing until now. Victoria Carson, from ghost to guardian of truth. The silent partner who pulled the plug. But I stayed off social media. I deleted the Dropbox link, took down the mirrored backup, cleared the files from my home screen. Not because I wanted to erase what happened. No, I just didn't need to hold it anymore. Not in my hands, not in my bloodstream. Justice, it turns out, isn't about returning to where you were. It's about not needing to anymore. I hadn't stepped foot inside the Carson & Co. lobby since the day I left the box. And I had no plans to. That afternoon, Aya messaged me. She stepped down. Legal's starting the transition review. I didn't smile. It didn't even blink. Isabella's investor deal frozen, Pry team replaced. There were murmurs she might face civil claims from shareholders, but none of it felt like victory. It felt like a tire losing air. Slow, flat, inevitable. Some endings don't feel like triumph. Just weight leaving your chest. The next day I went back to the building, not to confront anyone. No cameras, no statements. Just me, dressed in soft jeans and a coat I'd owned long before the company was ever born. The security guard at the front recognized me but said nothing. I handed him a small cream envelope. He looked confused but took it. I asked him to make sure it reached the executive floor. Inside was the silver teardrop pin and a note handwritten on thick stationery. "You can keep the plaque." I kept the truth. That was the last piece of it. I wanted to carry. She was in a bright office behind a simple but elegant desk, with a startup's logo etched in frosted glass behind her. New seat, this time at the head of the table. My response was, short. Good. Stay there. We didn't talk much after that. We didn't need to. Weeks passed. Other stories rose to replace mine. But I still caught glimpses. At a small bookstore tucked in a quiet block near the Puget Sound, an older woman stepped up beside me while I was browsing. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask for a photo. She just said in a low voice, "Your story reminded me I wasn't crazy when they told me I didn't belong." I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. We just stood there breathing the same quiet air. Later that afternoon, I found myself sitting by the Puget Sound, legs tucked under me, coffee in hand. The breeze lifted the edge of my scarf as boats drifted by in the distance. Families walked their dogs, and traffic hummed over the bridge above. No headlines, no spotlight, just bench, just space. I thought about the girl I used to be, The one who whispered, "It's fine," even when it wasn't. The one who dimmed herself so others could shine. They wrote me out, so I rewrote myself. Not for applause, not for legacy, not even for closure. For her. For the woman who spent too long believing silence meant loyalty, who thought biting her tongue was noble, who let others take credit because she thought dignity meant stepping back. Now I knew better. Some stories don't need noise to echo. I smiled softly, knowing my truth had shattered her lies forever.